Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Octopussy, the 13th Bond film in the franchise, and once again directed by Glen. And Octopussy is, it's considered by most to be one of the worst Bond films. Not much people would say it's a good film, and certainly not, a great film. There is kind of a cult, following, but it is considered one of the worst Bond films. And it would sit among the period of consistently disappointing Bond films for me. Moonraker through to it would only really pick up consistently with, for me, License to Kill. But Octopussy, I'll say it now, it's not actually as bad for me anyway as some people make out. And it does feature some of the worst, some of the most cringeworthy Bond moments towards the end, really. You've got the famous scenes where he dresses up as a clown, and yeah, there's no defending that, really. But overall, as a film, I don't think it's a bad film. It's got a really good opening scene, actually, for me. Well, I mean, the action's really good anyway. There's some, campy bits, and it kind of, straight away you see it's kind of like a copying Raiders of the Lost Ark, As I say before, the Bond films did this, mainly in the Roger Moore era, where they would just kind of copy, rehash elements of, these big films that were out at the time, like Moonraker of Star Wars, this is Raiders, I think. And you've got as well some of the earlier ones of Moore's, like Man with the Golden Gun, which would kind of be like sort of martial arts inspired, and yeah, Moonraker would really be a low point of that kind of thing they were doing for me. But yeah, no, you can see it's kind of inspired by Raiders of the Lost Ark, this film. But the opening action scene is actually really good. I thought, the jets and everything. The only thing that is kind of crap was when it led into the credits. It was a bit cheesy, even for Roger Moore Bond standards. But yeah, the opening credits, I'm not really a big fan of the song. It's All Time High by Rita Coolidge. It's kind of, it doesn't really suit Bond, I don't think. It's just kind of a really, really typical cheesy 80s song, really, for me. And it's not one of the worst Bond songs, but it's not that good. And the opening credits, again, I found this with a lot of the Roger Moore Bond films. The credits were not really well put together, whereas before with the Sean Connery ones and on Her Majesty's Secret Service even, they were really well thought out, and there was a lot put into the actual design of the credits. But a lot of these ones are just kind of generic, and this one was as well. And we start off with some pretty basic plotting, and it is a campy film. It's clear from the beginning that it's quite campy, and the plot really is just another kind of generic. There's this mysterious egg that an agent was killed while holding. You see that quite early on, and it goes around at these auctions that you see, Bond involved in early on, and basically you find out that this guy Kamal, who's the main villain, he kind of he's hatching a plan with General Orlov, I think it is. He's played by Steven Berkoff, and it's basically this plot to set off this nuclear device in like this airbase, and kind of it would start World War III. So it's another kind of race against time. Yeah, it's pretty generic once again, but it's done in quite a enjoyable way, actually. Them bits, it's really, really over the top in that, but it's somehow quite enjoyable to see Steven Berkoff give one of his more over the top performances, and he has done quite a lot of performances. They were quite over the top, but here especially, it kind of fits the tone though, and it's not all bad. It's not jarring, like breaking the tone really. And to be honest, he's quite enjoyable in this film, I would say. the main villain, yeah, quite forgettable, I would say. Not horrendous, but just nothing special either. And the whole, the scenes with them could have been done better. But the film moves at quite a steady pace, and it's got some really, I think, energetic action scenes overall. Certainly towards the middle of the film, I think, and there's some bits involving the train and stuff, and actually the race, kind of a Bond trying to get to the circus, near the end of the film was quite enjoyable actually as well. And it's kind of tense, even though he eventually wears a clown costume and goes into the circus. Which if you were watching, say Goldfinger and From Russia with Love, and at the time you'd never think that Bond would ever end up like this. Him dressed as a clown. Yeah, thinking if you were back then, you thought that you just trying to get yourself in the shoes of the viewers back then, you'd be disgusted really, that Bond would end up like this. But we had many Bond films before this, the Roger Moores and then Diamonds Are Forever, which would be, would kind of gradually ease us into this, just kind of stupid, over the top stuff. So it's not all bad, but in itself, yeah, it's a pretty disgraceful thing, really. When you think about Bond, I can't see them ever doing that again. Basically, now at this point in the franchise, they would never let this happen again. I don't think. And the tone of this film, it is tongue in cheek again, and it manages, I think as well. There is actually, when he does, towards the end of the film, try and save everyone and actually defuse the bomb. It's surprisingly, in itself, it's kind of a tense scene, despite him wearing the costume and that. It's kind of weird, but yeah, they do actually make it kind of tense, and I think the actual way the film's shot and everything is pretty good as well. It's pretty solid. So that in itself, the way that bomb was defused and everything, I thought that was pretty good. But the whole idea of Bond dying about dressed up as a clown in disguise and everything, it is stupid. And I think they could only really Roger Moore could have pulled that off actually. A lot. If Daniel Craig was doing this, it would be an absolute disgrace. It would seem just mental. But there's something about Roger Moore. He can kind of pull off more of these tongue-in-cheek roles. Because he would be I suppose he's the Bond that takes himself least seriously. Out of all the Bonds. But yeah, no, it's a flawed film. It's a bit of an up and down film. But there was some supporting characters I liked as well. VJ, I think it was. He was quite entertaining and quite funny. And you've got a chase early on that he's involved in. A bit stupid again. There's kind of this tennis thing that goes on. And yeah, but as I say, the action throughout the film is pretty good. There's never really any bad action in the film, and it has quite an energetic feel. I never really thought I was getting too bored of the film. It just kind of moves. It's just got that pace and that energy to it. Kind of charming as well. And I don't see it as bad as some people make out. It's just really, when I think about it and what I expect from Bond, it is obviously not that great. But yeah, I thought the villain was basic, as I say. You've got some good side characters, quite entertaining. But you've also got obviously a lot of just moments that are a bit bizarre, to say the least. And the Bond girl, Octopussy, obviously, played by Maud Adams, is kind of she's not that great. She's kind of generic. She doesn't really, once again, add anything to the film. She's not distractingly bad like some of the Bond girls, but yeah, just a generic character, typical really. And there's not really any chemistry between her and Roger Moore. it was just kind of, you know, they had to get a Bond girl, so put her in there, and just have her, you know, in the film. The Q in this film, I was a bit annoyed at, really, because towards the end of the film, they involve him more in the story in this film. I kind of liked it throughout some of it. So in the middle kind of act, he's with VJ, and he's kind of just, yeah, it's kind of quite warm and charming the way it goes on, and just how he's helping Bond a little bit more in this film. But the last kind of sequence of the film, he's kind of he's used as a comic relief, I think, character, and it's quite annoying, really. And yeah, it's just annoying that you're using Q like this in this film. And you know, there's these stereotypical things going on, and these women that surround him and everything. It's kind of stupid. I wish they didn't do that, really. And it kind of breaks tone, actually, because Q is, you know, he's always been funny in Bond films, but you know, he's just this old guy, and what they were doing there, it didn't work. It was involved in one of the action scenes at the end. And you know, this has got some other really bizarre moments, of course, like the bit where Roger Moore kind of yells like Tarzan. He swings through the trees. That's really bad, that bit, actually. It's kind of in the middle of the film as well, the first half, where he's getting chased like through the jungle and stuff, and yeah, it was stupid as well. So overall, this film, yeah, it is disappointing. If you compare it to, you know, what Bond should be. When I go into a Bond film, really, I expect to see, you know, a 9 out of 10 film, really. You know, an 8.5 bare minimum. But, you know, because the bar was set so high, really, for me, with the 60s Bonds, you know, really all of them apart from Thunderball, were consistently great, you know, masterful, really. And, you know, it took a dip after that, I think, the franchise. And, you know, ever since, even, you know, the Daniel Craig ones, it's been up and down, you know, hit and miss, really. And at times, you know, with the Roger Moore ones, you've got consecutive Bonds that aren't very good at all. This one, I'd say, it just gets to that average mark, because it is kind of well put together. You know, it's well directed, well shot. The action scenes are energetic, and you know, they are quite entertaining. You've got some, you know, entertaining side characters. You know, General Orlov and VJ, for example. But you've got a lot of bizarre moments. You know, a lot of moments that just are bad, really. And you know, Bond dressing up as a clown, it's pathetic, really. But yeah, overall, I enjoy this film. You know, it's entertaining, it's funny, you know, in its campy way. You know, it has got their moments that make me really pissed off, really. But you know, it makes, from start to finish, if I judge it just as a film, you know, an action kind of comedy thriller, it's decent, and it's close to being, like, you know, mediocre, that sort of area. But I'd say I'll give it a 60%, just on the average mark for me, just because it kind of works, you know, as a film, as a bit of entertainment. And you know, it's got some things to praise, you know, like the direction, you know, like the action, and its overall energy. You know, it never really gets, as I say, boring. It just is. It is a kind of. It's kind of a disgrace when you think about some of the stuff that goes on in it. But as a whole picture, as I say, it's, you know, it holds up as a decent film, I'd say. And you know, if it weren't for the action and stuff like that, yeah, it would have been a lot worse. But not quite, as I say, as bad as you know, some people make it out to be. That's just my opinion. I can understand, of course, if people, you know, hate this film because of what it does for Bond, you know, and what it kind of ruins in a way. But I'm just judging it, you know, as a film in its own. And yeah, it's just average, really, for me. There's nothing nothing that I love about the film at all. It's just average, and it's definitely not the worst Bond for sure. And I kind of I enjoyed this more than Moonraker. I think it's better than Moonraker. And yeah, but nothing to speak of at all. And I just hope that they never, do this sort of thing again. Well, they won't. I don't think they will. But with them moments that are just Bond should never have done really. And as I say, only Roger Moore really could have pulled that off, so it wasn't absolutely, horrendously breaking the tone and that kind of thing. Although it was bad. It was pretty disgraceful. So Octopussy, an average film. As a Bond film, of course, it has no place really. But yeah, thanks for watching my review. Check out my other reviews on my channel. Next up is A View to a Kill, which, it's an interesting film. Thanks for watching.